Senator from the great state of Minnesota.
Mr. President, are we in a quorum call?
No, we are not.
Okay. Mr. President, I rise today to speak in strong opposition to the recently revealed Senate congressional budget bill. I will note that this is a 940-page bill that was just put out there at midnight. For me, that was a moment because, one, I realized that nothing has changed in terms of the proposal. It's actually added to the debt. And two, from about $3.4 trillion to one analysis says $4 trillion, and it actually adds more Medicaid cuts, another $100 billion, up to $900 billion in Medicaid cuts. Those are the top lines. I don't think anyone's had time to look at every single detail of that bill. But for me, it meant something else. That meant that I knew that I was going to stay here, along with my colleague, Senator Smith, and because we have a job to do that is really important on this budget. But it was hard to not go home and grieve for one of my very good and beloved friends, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, Mark, whose funeral was held today in our state. And I would have been there in person because of the gravity of the legislation we are considering today, but I was able to watch it online. One of the things that I most remember and will always remember from that funeral, in addition to the beauty of it, in addition to the trees and the bushes that awaited the guests outside, because Melissa loved the beauty of the world and cared a lot about the world around her, but it was the words of our Archbishop, Archbishop Hebda. It was a very religious service, full Mass. My husband got to be there and take part in that Mass. But Archbishop Hebda said at the close of the ceremony, he quoted the new Pope, Pope Leo, who recently said that politics is one of the greatest forms of charity. Melissa always believed that. She believed that in how she lived her life and got things done for people, whether it was school lunches or better paid family leave or more fairness for people in our state. She believed that to her core, and her husband did too. When their kids wrote just a few days after their parents were murdered by a madman, their two kids in their 20s, one is going to get married in December, his fiance was there, Melissa was planning the wedding. They asked people to make the world just a little bit better. They said, plant a tree, pet a dog, hopefully a golden retriever, because they love dogs so much. Do something small or big. So I figure that's what we're going to be doing the next few days. And this is big, but it's something that's going to make a difference to people in this country if we don't do something about this bill right now. What does this bill do? It kicks 16 million people off their health care. 16 million people off their health care. In order to finance tax cuts for the wealthiest, in order to give multimillionaires a $400,000 tax cut, that doesn't make the world a better place. Adding $4 trillion in debt, $1 trillion of it is interest, which is going to make mortgage rates go up. It's going to make it harder for young people to be able to maybe get their first house or pay their rent. It's putting it on their backs. It's putting it on their shoulders. That's why I don't see this as a big, beautiful bill. I see this as a big, beautiful betrayal of the hardworking people of this country. Why are our colleagues scrambling to get this done in 2 days just because the president sets a deadline and says, jump, and they say, how high? Why are they always rubber stamping things that they don't actually believe in? We still know this newest draft, the 940 pages that no one's really read. We know that the bill still rips away health care from millions of Americans and closes hundreds of rural hospitals. It still shifts costs to states and threatens food assistance for families across the country. It still adds trillions of dollars to the federal debt. People in this country, the more they hear about this, the more they don't like it. A Fox News poll recently, 60% of the people don't like it. 2 to 1 people say this isn't going to help me, it's going to help wealthy people. People on Medicaid, they don't want to lose access to health care. 1 out of 2 people in assisted living are actually on Medicaid. You know, when my dad was in assisted living, he had some savings. He was married 3 times, so a lot of that money had gone away. Better for talk about another time. But I knew the exact day that that savings was going to run out. I knew the exact saving day because I was going to move him over to a Catholic Charities place that actually took Medicaid, because that was the day that his Medicaid would kick in. And it gave me some solace, even though he was in a place that didn't take Medicaid, that I had a plan for him. I had a place for him to go. He worked hard his whole life. Grew up in a hardscrabble mining town. He deserved to have the end of his life be a life of dignity. This is not what the American people voted for. When I get out to rural Minnesota, I visit all of 87 counties every single year. I've done 49 so far, so I've been in a lot of our rural counties in the last 6 months. They are scared to death of what this is going to do to rural hospitals, because the debt is so huge in this bill, it actually triggers some rules on Medicare that will cut $500 billion in Medicare. In addition to the Medicaid cuts I already laid out, which are now up to $900 billion. That's devastating for rural hospitals. It's projected 300 rural hospitals will close. This is the lifeline for people in rural America. When they get something, a very, very serious illness, yeah, they'll go to another hospital in a maybe bigger area, bigger town, metro area. But when they need emergency care, unless they're going to get a helicopter coming in to get them, or they break a leg, and there's a lot of people working outside in rural areas, farming, logging, you name it, they need to have a local hospital there. They need to have local doctors there. There is no avoiding the facts. 16 million people cut off health care, closing over 300 rural hospitals and 500 nursing homes across the country. Republicans want to say the updated text will help rural providers with additional funding, but the bill is now making over $900 billion in cuts instead of the $800 billion when it comes to health care. I've heard from a working mom of 2 whose parents rely on Medicaid for health care. She told me she doesn't think it's fair to shift the cost of care to families like her to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy. Duh. She said we need to draw the line and say this is enough. I have heard from so many people across my state about the food assistance cut. 4 million people off of food assistance. You know what the vast majority of people on food assistance? Veterans, seniors, people with little kids, old people. Those are the people on food assistance. Grocery stores. In rural areas, you may have 1 grocery store in a town, more likely in a county, more likely in 4 counties. They are operating already, many of them are independent groceries, on thin change. You make these kind of thin margins, you make these kinds of cuts, to SNAP, the results are going to be that you're going to lose these grocery stores. As ranking member of the Senate Ag Committee, I have heard over and over again from farmers who are already facing headwinds. The Trump tariffs, they don't have markets now that they had markets before. The cuts to the international food assistance that we were always so proud of in this country, that was other organizations buying American farmers' food. The input costs, what's happening with avian flu and other things, and now you add this. This is food that's produced by American farmers when you cut $200 billion, as the Senate bill does, from the SNAP program. The nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has confirmed that the Senate bill would end SNAP for 2.9 million Americans, including over nearly a million seniors and 270,000 veterans. The bill passed by the House would add $3.4 trillion, as I noticed, to the national debt, and this Senate bill is now up to $4 trillion. And it uses this funky budgeting, which, let me just explain it an easy way. It's called baseline budgeting. Everyone that looks at this from the outside says, this is a $4 trillion debt adder. But they use something where they say, okay, let's say, the Washington Post did this today. You go to a movie and you buy a movie ticket. Let's say it's $10. Then you get some pop, then you do that 1 week. And then, because you want to see that F1 movie, the new movie, then 2 weeks later, you go and you want to see it again, but you get some popcorn for $5, small popcorn for $5. Okay, instead of saying you're paying your $10 for the ticket and your $5 for the popcorn, they say, oh, it's only $5, because that's how much it went up over the last few weeks. That's the funky budgeting. That's the joke. That's the faux budgeting that's going on the other side. $4 trillion in 10 years. That is what it costs. This is not what Americans voted for. The president promised to lower costs and stand up for the middle class. This bill does the opposite. It raises costs. It takes from working people to pad the pockets of the wealthy. And that is why this bill is so unpopular. Whether it is a mom from Louisiana whose son has Down syndrome and counts on Medicaid, or a bus driver from Kansas, like the one I met, who uses SNAP to feed her kids, the American people are speaking out against this bill. We will have the weekend to fight this bill. And I think people in the middle of the summer, maybe they're not tuned in, but they better tune in, because we should be protecting health care, not taking it away, defending food assistance, not raising grocery costs. We should not be giving tax breaks to the wealthy. We should be helping out the middle class and hardworking Americans. That's what our job should be. It's not what this bill is. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.